NASA has gone silent, completely silent. For weeks, they have been releasing steady updates about 3I/Atlas, trajectory data, observational reports, spectroscopic readings, all routine, all consistent. Then, 5 days ago, everything just stopped. No new bulletins, no press releases. The official NASA tracking page for 3I/Atlas hasn't been updated since. Scheduled press briefings were canceled without explanation, and now, the reason for that silence is starting to become clear. 3I/Atlas has just activated something major, while near Earth, and NASA is clearly not prepared to discuss what they're seeing. I'm Michio Kaku, and I've been tracking this object since it first entered our solar system. I have sources inside NASA, contact in other space agencies, and access to observational data from independent observatories. What I'm about to explain is based on that information, and it represents the most significant development yet in this unfolding situation. 5 days ago, 3I/Atlas was approximately 0.98 astronomical units from Earth, about 147 million kilometers away, which is actually closer than Mars is to us right now. Up until then, its movement was predictable. It had passed perihelion and was slowly receding outward from the inner solar system. Then, something changed. Multiple amateur astronomers noticed it first. The object brightened suddenly, a magnitude increase of 2.3 in under 4 hours. That's nearly 10 times brighter in visible light. At the same time, its spectroscopic profile shifted. New emission lines appeared, including that same mysterious 637 nanometer line that has appeared and vanished unpredictably in previous observations. But this time, the line is stable. It has remained continuously visible for 5 straight days. Professional observatories confirmed the change within hours. Hubble, the very large telescope in Chile, Subaru in Hawaii, Keike, Nankei, they all recorded the same transformation, and the images are astonishing. 3I/Atlas now emit intense light from multiple discrete points across its surface. It no longer resembles a comet. It resembles something illuminated, like a craft with active lighting systems. I'm not speaking metaphorically. The visual pattern is consistent with controlled artificial illumination. But what has alarmed researchers even more is when this activation occurred. Not at closest approach to the sun, which is when a comet behavior is normally the most active. It activated at closest approach to Earth. Right now, the object is 147 million kilometers away, a relatively close distance in cosmic scale. NASA's final official statement, released only hours before the communications shutdown, acknowledged unusual activity and stated that observations are ongoing. Since then, nothing, no press briefings, no technical updates, no expert interviews. The Public Affairs Office is directing all inquiries to a generic statement about continuing data analysis. That is not standard NASA procedure. Even during uncertain situations, NASA maintains public updates. This sudden silence is intentional. 3 different researchers inside NASA have spoken with me confidentially over the past few days. They are concerned not only by what is happening, but by the decision to suppress public communication. Their accounts are consistent. Senior leadership at NASA halted public updates after realizing the nature of the activity occurring on 3I/Atlas. The internal justification given was to avoid public panic while assessment continues. The real reason, according to these sources, is simpler. They do not know what they're dealing with, and they do not want to admit that publicly. Here is what the object is doing, based on the observational data I have reviewed firsthand. 3I/Atlas is emitting radiation across multiple regions of the electromagnetic spectrum, visible light, explaining the brightness increase, infrared, indicating thermal emission beyond what solar heating alone can account for, radio waves at specific, discrete frequencies, possibly X-rays, though that data is still being verified. These emissions are not random. They are structured, narrow-band frequencies, pulsing with rhythmic periodicity. The visible light brightens and dims in an 18-minute cycle. The radio emission pulses every 43 seconds. These are precise, stable, and maintained patterns over days. Patterns imply control. Control implies engineering. High-resolution imagery from Hubble shows 7 bright emission points arranged in a geometric pattern. Specifically, the vertices of a heptagon. 7 points, evenly spaced. The probability of that occurring naturally is almost zero. Meanwhile, the 637 nanometer line remains unexplained. No known atomic transition, molecular process, or plasma state matches it under realistic conditions. It either involves exotic states of matter we have never observed, or materials we do not understand. Neither explanation is reassuring. The most significant detail remains timing. The major activation occurred not near the Sun, but near Earth. That suggests awareness of Earth's position, which implies sensing systems, which implies program behavior or decision-making capability. In other words, 3I/Atlas is not behaving like a passive natural object. It is responding. Meanwhile, the Chinese intercept mission is now about 35 days away from close approach. Their agency has released more information than NASA. They confirm the same anomalies, including the structured radio emissions. But they added something NASA has not acknowledged. The radio pulses appear to contain data, variations in amplitude and frequency consistent with information encoding. If the pulses contain data, then they are being transmitted to somewhere. To where and to whom is the question. If 3I/Atlas is transmitting, then the next question becomes, transmitting to who? Is it sending data back to its origin, wherever that is, reporting everything observed during its passage through our solar system? Is it communicating with other components of a larger network, perhaps fragments or modules that separated during perihelion? Is it transmitting toward Earth, attempting communication? Or is the transmission not external at all, but instead internal? Communication between subsystems within the object itself? Right now, we simply don't know. Without determining the transmission direction and antenna alignment, we cannot identify the intended recipient. I've spent considerable time reviewing its trajectory data. 3I/Atlas is on a hyperbolic orbit, meaning it will eventually leave the solar system. But here's the crucial detail. Its outbound trajectory is not the same as its inbound one. Small velocity changes have accumulated over weeks. These changes align with the continuous acceleration we have been observing. The result, 3I/Atlas will exit the solar system along a different path than the one it entered on. This is significant for 3 reasons. It confirms the acceleration is real, not observational error. If this is a probe, it is not returning to its origin. It is heading somewhere else. The trajectory change implies active propulsion, not passive gravitational motion. This behavior matches spacecraft, not natural objects. Now let's examine the energy output. Based on emission measurements across multiple wavelengths, the power output is on the order of megawatts. For context, the International Space Station produces around 100 kilowatts from its solar arrays. 3I/Atlas is generating 10 times that amount at minimum. So, where is that energy coming from? Solar energy is not sufficient at this distance. Even if the entire surface were covered in perfect solar panels, which is physically impossible, the output would not match what we are seeing. So the power must come from an internal source, a nuclear reactor, radioisotope thermoelectric generators, or some other advanced power system we do not yet understand. Infrared observations support this conclusion. The object is warmer than solar heating alone would allow, and the heat is not evenly distributed. There are localized hot regions. This pattern indicates internal power generation, not passive warming. Let's evaluate the natural explanations that have been proposed. Outgassing. Could sublimation of volatile ices produce the observed emissions? No. The required gas production would be enormous, far beyond what is realistic. And we are not observing the expected coma density or chemical signatures. Impact event. Could a collision have triggered this? If so, we would have seen a debris plume and a brief flash, not sustained controlled emissions. Delayed thermal response from perihelion heating. Thermal models say the timing is wrong. Peaks of surface temperatures should have occurred weeks ago, not now. Tidal forces from Earth. At this distance, Earth's tidal influence is negligible. Magnetic field interactions. Earth's magnetic field does not extend anywhere near far enough to produce these effects. Solar-wind interactions also do not match the observed emission structure. Each natural explanation fails for the same reason. The energy doesn't match. The timing doesn't match. The geometry doesn't match. The radio signal structure doesn't match. You can construct natural explanations by adding layers of unlikely assumptions, but at some point, the natural explanation becomes more complicated than the artificial one. By contrast, the artificial hypothesis fits everything cleanly. 3i/Atlas is a probe that activated observation and transmission systems at closest approach to Earth. It has proximity sensors. It has operational power systems. It is transmitting structured data. It is likely adjusting its trajectory intentionally. One hypothesis explains all observations, and that, right there, is why NASA went silent. Because the moment NASA says publicly, "We believe 3i/Atlas may be an artificial probe from another civilization," the world changes instantly. Financial markets react. Religions and worldviews are challenged. Governments move to secure advantage. Defense agencies assume worst-case scenarios. Public panic becomes possible. This is no longer just a scientific question. It becomes geopolitical, social, philosophical, existential. So NASA has chosen silence, waiting for more data, waiting for the Chinese intercept mission to arrive, waiting for certainty before saying anything that cannot be taken back. Inside NASA, my sources describe intense debate. Some want full disclosure now. Others want to wait until the Chinese craft reaches 3i/Atlas, approximately 35 days from now. The disagreement is real and growing, will be confirmed as artificial once we obtain close-range observations. Each piece of evidence on its own could be explained by natural phenomena, but when taken together, they paint a very compelling picture. If I'm correct, this will be the first definitive proof that intelligent life exists elsewhere in the universe, and that it has already visited our solar system. This would represent the most profound discovery in human history, answering one of our oldest questions. Are we alone? The answer is no. We are not alone. We never were. But now we know for certain. That realization changes everything. Humanity must reconsider every endeavor, every assumption, in light of this larger cosmic context. We are not isolated beings on a solitary planet. We are part of a network of intelligent life dispersed across a galaxy, or perhaps the universe. Our future will involve interaction with this broader community. The way we manage this first confirmed contact will set the framework for all future encounters. From NASA's perspective, silence is understandable. Institutionally, they are focused on self-preservation. They fear public panic, misinterpretation, and the consequences of being wrong. But from the perspective of society at large, this silence is wrong. We need honest communication about what is being observed. We need public engagement with the implications. We need global dialogue on how to respond. Controlling information and maintaining secrecy may reduce short-term disruption, but it erodes long-term trust and limits preparedness. I am calling for NASA to resume public communication immediately. Share the data. Share the analysis. Share the uncertainties. Admit when something is unknown. Acknowledge the artificial hypothesis, while remaining scientifically cautious. Let the public and the scientific community grapple with the implications together. We are adults capable of processing profound information. We deserve honesty. The activation of 3i/Atlas near Earth 5 days ago is likely the most significant event since the object entered our detection range. Something turned on. Systems were activated. Energy generation increased. Emissions became structured. And all of this occurred at closest approach to Earth. This is not coincidence. This is mission execution. NASA went silent because they understand what this means. They are seeing the same evidence I see. They have likely reached the same conclusions. Yet they are paralyzed by the implications and terrified of being wrong in public. So they chose silence. Wait for certainty. Wait for the Chinese spacecraft to provide close-range observations. Wait for the situation to somehow resolve. But silence is not neutral. Silence is a choice. It is a choice not to trust the public. It is a choice to prioritize institutional comfort over transparency. Choosing silence is choosing control of the narrative rather than enabling open investigation. I understand the pressures NASA is under: congressional oversight, budget politics, public perception, the fear of being wrong in front of the world. But this is bigger than institutional reputation. This is potential first contact. Let me describe what I believe will unfold over the next 35 days. 3i Atlas will continue operating the systems that recently activated. The missions will continue. They may increase. New behavior may appear. Our job will be to observe and document everything. Scientific papers are already appearing rapidly, and the spectrum of conclusions ranges from exotic natural object to unmistakably artificial craft. Meanwhile, the Chinese spacecraft continues its approach. Roughly 10 days before closest encounter, it will begin transmitting high-resolution images. Those images will reveal the surface clearly. If 3i Atlas is a natural asteroid, we will see ordinary, irregular rock formations. If it is artificial, we will see structured geometry, repeating patterns, engineered surfaces, unmistakable signs. At closest distance, the spacecraft will deploy its full suite of instruments: multi-spectrum imaging, spectrometers to determine material composition, magnetometers to detect electromagnetic systems, particle detectors for emission analysis, radar mapping to see internal structure. If 3i Atlas is artificial, these measurements will confirm it without ambiguity. Then what? If confirmation happens, NASA's silence will no longer be viable. They will have to acknowledge what they know. They will have to explain why communication stopped. If they handle it directly, admitting uncertainty, explaining caution, acknowledging mistakes, the public will likely be forgiving. People generally respect institutions that are transparent about not knowing. Global reaction will not be uniform. Some will feel excitement. Some will experience fear. Many will feel no immediate change in daily life. It's distant, abstract. Religious communities will respond in varied ways. Some will interpret it as evidence of life created across the universe by divine intention. Others will struggle with the spiritual implications. Philosophers will re-engage timeless questions about consciousness, meaning, and our place in the cosmos. Geopolitically, nations will maneuver for position. Who leads humanity's response? The United States has long dominated space policy, but is now counterbalanced by China, Russia, and the European Union. First contact might accelerate a shift towards shared multinational governance of space, which is probably necessary. No single nation should control decisions of this magnitude. Economically, the effects are unpredictable. Initial shock is likely. Beyond that, much depends on what we learn. If 3i Atlas contains recoverable technology, the world changes overnight. If it simply confirms other civilizations exist but offers no technology, then the immediate impact is psychological, cultural, philosophical, not technological. Science, however, will change instantly. Astrobiology becomes a core discipline. SETI receives unprecedented funding. Exoplanet research shifts toward biosignature detection. Physicists re-examine how interstellar travel could be achieved. Engineers analyze possible operating principles. Every field will be affected because the question, "Are we alone?" touches every human domain. For me personally, this is a culmination of a lifetime spent exploring these questions: extraterrestrial intelligence, interstellar travel, the implications of contact. I have argued for years that intelligence likely arises frequently in the universe, given the sheer number of worlds. I have considered how advanced civilizations might behave. Now, we may be on the edge of observational confirmation of those ideas. It is humbling, because it shows how much we still don't know, and exhilarating, because we are finally learning. Science is the act of transforming ignorance into understanding through observation and reasoning. And 3i Atlas is giving us exactly that: new observations that will create new understanding. Whether it is natural or artificial, we gain knowledge either way. But I am increasingly convinced it is artificial. The evidence is too consistent. The coincidence is too precise. The natural explanations too strained. When impossible is removed, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. 3i Atlas activated near Earth. Its systems turned on. Emissions began. Transmission started. All at the moment of closest approach. That is deliberate. That is programmed behavior. NASA went silent because they recognize the implications. They see what I see. They arrive at similar conclusions. But they chose silence instead of transparency. That silence must end. We need open communication about what is happening. We need public engagement. We need global discussion about how humanity responds. We need transparency from the institutions we have trusted to explore space and represent our scientific understanding. So I am calling on NASA's leadership. Resume public briefings. Share the data. Share the interpretation. Share the alternative hypotheses, including artificial origin. Share the uncertainties. Trust the public. We are capable of handling profound truth. 3i Atlas activated near Earth 5 days ago. That is the fact. Systems are running. Emissions are structured. Transmissions are ongoing. Whatever this object is, it is doing something intentional in our solar system right now. And we need our space agency to tell us what they're seeing and what they believe it means. The silence must end. The truth, whatever it is, must be shared. We are ready. This is how free societies face the unknown, with transparency, open discussion, and shared decision-making. 3i Atlas is active. Humanity is watching. NASA is silent.